Have you ever sat down to binge some good old TV and thought, wait, where did all the Black girls go?
We get it. This is Lost Credits, a podcast about the Black girls we've loved and what popular culture does to them. I'm Ashley Wade.
And I'm Tamika Townsell.
We are professors, Black feminist media scholars, and writers. We started Lost Credits to revive the conversation around representation in media studies.
That means we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us after the episode to let us know what you think.
And if you head to our website, you'll find bonus features like discussion guides, teaching tips, and recommended reading.
Let's get into the show. We start each episode by inviting you into our heads with our replay segment. Quick takes on things we're watching, reading, or listening to that we are itching to discuss. Before we get started, please note that today's segment focuses on a mediated depiction of a sexual assault that may be triggering for some listeners and unsuitable for others. All right, Ashley. So there's this Jay-Z lyric and a certain record about people in Paris that goes like this. Psycho, I'm liable to go. Michael, take your pick. Jackson, Tyson, Jordan, Game 6. And if you know anything at all about the second Michael, the subject of today's replay is going to make a lot more sense to you. If you don't know the second Michael referenced in that lyric, listen in real close. So once upon a time, when boxing was still a popular enough form of U.S. entertainment that its champions could become superstars, and I mean having your own video game level superstars, Michael Tyson, nicknamed Iron Mike, ruled. He hit center stage in 1985, and by 1986, had earned the title of heavyweight champion. At the time, at just 20 years old, he was the youngest person in history to do so.
And a right hand behind it. Thomas in trouble again. And now Tyson moves in for the kill. Two uppercuts and a left hand. Thomas trying to hold on. Serious trouble. And down he goes.
Tyson was known for his ferocious fighting style, knocking opponents out with spectacular speed. Outside the ring, he was one part poor kid from Brooklyn turned phenom, and two parts caricature, specifically the Black Buck or Brute. The Jim Crow Museum Project at Ferris State University describes the Black Brute as, quote, a fiend, a sociopath, and an antisocial menace. This caricature portrayed Black men as innately savage, animalistic, destructive, and criminal. Hulu's 8-episode miniseries, Mike, released in August 2022, offers a kind of rough mosaic of Tyson's rise and fall that revolves around an enduring dilemma. What makes him so successful at his sport is the same thing that wreaks havoc in his personal life, especially in his romantic relationships and interactions with women, sometimes very young women. On the one hand, the boxing audience demands that Tyson become the Black Buck, but on the other hand, ridicules him for not being able to contain that savagery to the boxing ring. It's important to note that Tyson did not participate in the making of the Hulu series, and he makes his feelings very clear about that in a recent Instagram post. Quote, "Don't let Hulu fool you," the post reads. "I don't support their story about my life. It's not 1822, it's 2022. They stole my life story and didn't pay me. To Hulu executives, I'm just an N-word they can sell on the auction block." Whew. All right, Ashley, what do you think about this show?
I think that the show epitomizes complexity and ambivalence. I remember hearing the name Mike Tyson a lot as a child, but my earliest memory of seeing him in action was during the infamous matchup with Evander Holyfield, which is actually how the Hulu series starts. I was in middle school by then, so I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to be watching that. And I don't even remember where I saw it, but the image of him biting a piece of that man's ear off and spitting it out is forever etched in my brain.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I just thought of him as a scary, mentally disturbed man. But I think the Hulu series tries to humanize him without absolving him completely of the ways he has harmed people. Though I do have mixed feelings about whether the second part of that goal was achieved, especially given his rape conviction in the early 1990s. I actually didn't even realize that he did prison time as a convicted rapist until watching this show, because my memories of different people's responses to that conviction are just so murky.
Same here. You know, depending on your age, this show might be reminding you of one of the many scandals involving Black male elite athletes and sex, or introducing you to the Black guy in the first Hangover movie, right? The real person behind that character. But for people like us, the series offers a clarifying lens to bring into focus one of the high-profile sexual misconduct cases that precedes contemporary Hollywood's appropriation of the Me Too movement. Episode 5 of Mike breaks from Tyson's point of view to introduce a new narrator, 18-year-old Desiree Washington. An honor student from Rhode Island, Desiree was one of the contestants for the Miss Black America pageant. Established in 1968 by J. Morris Anderson, an entrepreneur from Philadelphia, the competition was designed to, according to Anderson, challenge widespread negative stereotypes associated with Black people in the United States. Have no idea how Tyson fit into that objective, but Tyson had nevertheless been booked for various appearances to help promote the 1991 pageant in Indianapolis, which is how he met Desiree. After luring her to his hotel room one night that July, Tyson changed the teenager's life forever. A jury convicted him of rape in February 1992, and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Tyson has repeatedly insisted on his innocence and sought to disparage Desiree as a gold digger. After the initial indictment, Desiree was offered $1 million to recant her story. It's unclear who was behind this offer. The FBI was supposed to be investigating it, but she declined. There's no evidence that Desiree has ever profited from her story. In 1992, during her first year in college, Washington agreed to be interviewed by Barbara Walters for an episode of ABC's 2020. It would be the only time she spoke directly to media about her experience.
You know, maybe it's the age difference, but there are a lot of people, and you know it, Desiree, who say 2 o'clock in the morning in a man's room with beds, what were you doing there at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I just wasn't thinking. There's no other explanation for it. There's nothing that I can say. And so many people don't remember when they were 18 years old and, you know, what they would have done if a celebrity called them at that time and said that he was leaving the next day. This was the only opportunity to get pictures of my father's hero, as I was thinking at the time, you know? And so many people don't understand or don't want to understand that or don't want to put themselves in my shoes or don't want to see my reasoning. And no matter what I say to them, they're not going to believe me anyway, but I've already said it to the jury, and that's all that counts.
The Washington Post.
The interview portrays Desiree as an all-American girl, a varsity cheerleader, softball player, and Sunday school teacher, raised in a 2-parent household under, quote, strict Baptist values. And the episode of Mike, told from her point of view, which she also did not participate in, sticks pretty closely to this portrayal. Ashley, looking back at episode 5, what do you think it reveals about Black girlhood and sexuality in the early 1990s?
I think this episode shows us how limited the parameters were, and in many ways still are, for conceptualizing Black girls' sexuality beyond a false dichotomy of respectability and deviance. While the writers of Mike likely felt that the inclusion of Desiree's story solidified their place on the right side of history in the Me Too era, it's telling how Desiree's narrative, as constructed by others, emphasizes her upbringing as a quote unquote good Christian girl and an honors student. Even though these are certainly commendable traits for a Black girl or really anyone to have, they're deployed in service of this problematic binary between being a good girl and being a fast girl. And I just want to say, like, I'm using the term fast as it's used by society. I don't believe in fast girls or calling girls fast.
Yes.
One of the questions that many people ask in instances where men rape girls or women in a hotel room is, why was she there in the first place? That question attempts to strip the victim of any claims to victimhood or justice through its suggestion that the girl or the woman wanted to have sex, thereby conflating perceived desire with consent. To be clear, I don't think this question has any relevance when ascertaining the details of a sexual assault. Intent and consent are not the same. In Desiree's case, the emphasis on her strong Christian values and academic achievements functioned to dispel any thought that she went to Tyson's room because she's sneaky and fast and looking to swindle a rich man. Instead, Desiree's good girl image positioned her as a worthy victim, deserving of justice. To understand the problem with this seemingly innocuous, noble portrayal of Desiree, we might compare her case to the dozens of Black girls who fell prey to R. Kelly's sexual abuse and predation. It took decades to bring R. Kelly to justice for the harm he's done to Black girls, because the narrative was that these were girls who were not pious. They weren't on honor roll. They weren't good girls.
Right.
People characterized them as being fast and seductive, connivingly exchanging sexual favors for the possibility of fame and money. So fast Black girls can't be victims in a warped cultural imaginary that renders Black girls' sexual development and need for protection mutually exclusive. We can think of Desiree Washington's portrayal in Mike as continuing a long-established pattern of representing Black girlhood and womanhood. One of the key theories from Patricia Hill Collins' groundbreaking text, Black Feminist Thought, describes what she terms controlling images. These images function as archetypal scripts for Black womanhood that objectify Black women by reducing them to caricatures. While there are countless examples of dehumanizing representations of Black women, Collins focuses on 4 overarching tropes: the mammy, the matriarch, the welfare queen, and the Jezebel. Most of us are probably familiar with the mammy image, whether we're talking about the vision of Hattie McDaniel's character in Gone with the Wind or Aunt Jemima. The mammy is defined by her enthusiastic devotion to serving white people at the expense of her own needs and desires. Portrayals of the mammy render her expressly asexual, despite the fact that she may have children of her own, whom she willingly ignores in service of whiteness. Along with the mammy, the matriarch, the strong Black woman who don't need no man, is another familiar stereotype of Black womanhood. Sometimes used interchangeably with Sapphire, an emasculating Black woman figure, the matriarch perpetuates the notion that the task of racial uplift ultimately falls on Black women who are responsible for building up their men and raising their children. Their overbearing demeanor pushes men away, leaving them to be single mothers, raising children in so-called broken homes. In Collins' articulation of these controlling images, the matriarch figure is not like a loving, devoted mother that we might think of when we hear the word matriarch. Instead, she's a bad or unfit mother who can't keep a man, which causes her children to suffer. Somewhat related to that matriarch controlling image in her position as a single mother, the welfare queen, quote, constitutes a highly materialistic, domineering, and manless working class Black woman, content to take the hard-earned money of tax-paying Americans and remain married to the state, end quote. And that comes from Hill Collins' text. As someone who spent part of my childhood living in Section 8 housing, getting free lunch, and being embarrassed as hell to use those colorful food stamps that predated the EBT card.
Right.
I assure you that government assistance is not a pathway to baller status. But there are versions of this trope that persist in media representations of Black women. I did feel somewhat encouraged in a recent conversation with some of my undergraduate students who did not know that the welfare queen was, in their words, a real thing. For them, it seems foolish that Black women could really profit from being on welfare. The fourth controlling image Hill Collins describes is the Jezebel, a sexually promiscuous, money-hungry attention seeker. So think like video vixens and another word that she uses, which is an outdated term, but like a hoochie mama or gold digger, like all of these terms are related to each other. Positioned against the respectable Black lady, the Jezebel's sexuality is inherently deviant and destructive.
These controlling images give us a general framework for making sense of the molds that undergird portrayals of Black girlhood in popular culture. This framework reminds us that contemporary representations are part of a larger genealogy of stories the society has made up about Black girls, and that these stories tend to reflect white supremacist patriarchal ideologies. Controlling images are useful theoretical concepts in this sense, but they shouldn't be taken up as constituting a scientific taxonomy of Black female representation. Every jovial, fat Black woman we see on screen is not a mammy. And every sexualized Black girl figure isn't a version of Jezebel. Some of the television figures that populate our small screens today do read like updated adaptations of what has come before. We see Black girls eagerly exploring the erotic, but their experiences with sex are sullied by unplanned pregnancies, violence, and addiction. When those Black girls are queer, they tend to be further marginalized as fiendish, criminal, or deeply confused. And the strong Black girls, the ones that help other characters solve their problems, may be portrayed as too serious to be interested in romance. For these characters, success and sex cannot coexist. But some of today's storytellers have breathed life into much messier character types that reflect their own experiences. For example, Issa Rae can be credited with thrusting awkward Black girlhood into the 21st century cultural landscape. In the digital series that launched her career and in her HBO hits, Rae has given us Black girls that are multidimensional and therefore impossible to fit into the parameters of old caricatures. As we discussed in the last episode, in the first decade of the 2000s, we witnessed a decline in Black family sitcoms, and with them, the virtual disappearance of Black girls from network television.
4 shows, not even a handful, included Black girls in recurring roles on network primetime television during the 2022-23 season. And 3 of those shows had Black girls as main characters: Stargirl, All-American, and All-American Homecoming, which all aired on the CW.
The Wonder Years reboot that launched in 2021 is scheduled to return to ABC mid-season, but had not yet premiered at the time of this recording. All-American and its spinoff, All-American Homecoming, are most relevant to our discussion because their young, predominantly Black cast offer a platter of Black girlhoods for us to analyze.
On one. And that safety's been sitting on that all night, bro. Coach called it, Spencer. The coach is wrong. All right, look, that boy's about to blitz. Look to me, all right? If I get the signal, just give me the ball, fast. You don't score, we dead. Man, I'll see you boys in the end zone.
Spencer James, the star of All-American, is a high school phenom and aspiring NFL player living in Crenshaw when audiences first meet him. Spencer shines on the field, but the life that his mother, a single woman raising 2 children while also working to finish her college degree, has afforded him is anything but ideal. In the first episode, we learned that sometimes his mother gets behind on the gas bill and they don't have hot water. There's also a football game that ends abruptly in gunfire, a drive-by shooting that Spencer describes as, quote, another day in the neighborhood. I found this highly problematic and ridiculous. Enter his father figure and rescuer, Billy Baker, portrayed by the very handsome Taye Diggs. Coach Baker is an alum of Spencer's high school who made it to the NFL, but takes a gig coaching at a posh high school in Beverly Hills after sustaining a career-ending injury. In addition to recruiting Spencer to play for his team, Baker and his wife, a white corporate attorney, allow the boy to live with them and their teenage twins, Jordan and Olivia, who are in the same grade as Spencer. The series follows the teen as he journeys back and forth between 2 worlds. A Black one, rich in culture, but where various dangers lurk around every corner, and a gleaming multicultural oasis punctuated with celebrity that is presented as Spencer's great escape, his way out. The Black girls that animate Spencer's 2 worlds initially lack his mobility. The show crystallizes each group in their respective milieus where they grapple with the vicissitudes of teen life. The common thread among the girls, regardless of which world they come from, is that their lives are more challenging than their male counterparts. Each decision weightier, with longer lasting consequences.
You really trusted your whole planting drugs on my tour bus with Andre? I've been knowing that dude a long time, and he got the worst poker face in history. I could look at him and tell he ain't want to be doing that. Oh, by the way, I unloaded all them drugs before we even left town.
There's Coop, a darker-skinned queer character and Spencer's best friend. She struggles to escape the supposed seduction of street life while also battling her mom about her sexuality. While Spencer is focused on football and new romantic flings, Coop is quite literally,
we good now?
Dodging bullets that have her name on them. Layla, Spencer's first girlfriend at Beverly High, is easily the most liked girl in school among her peers and her teachers.
That's quite the setup.
Yeah, well, home sweet home. You having fun at least? Maybe not all of us are as basic as you think. So you can stand here in the corner not fitting in, or you can make an effort. That part's up to you.
But there's nothing really girlish or childish about her. She spends long stretches of time managing her own life while her father, who runs his own record label, pours himself into work and spends weeks at a time on the road. By the time her friends start college, Layla is already busy running an independent record label of her own and taking artists on tour. Olivia is Spencer's latest love interest. And when she isn't raising hell as the resident Black Lives Matter warrior on the show, she's managing her sobriety or supporting others in their recovery journey.
These past couple of weeks have been really, really hard. Last night I had nothing left, and I would have had a drink if I didn't get help. So Why didn't you say anything sooner, sweetheart? Because I'm not the only one that lost Dad. And focusing it on me just felt selfish.
And finally, there's Simone, a Beverly High student and tennis player who gets pregnant and makes the difficult decision to give the child up for adoption.
I messed up everything. I pushed Jordan away. I pushed my baby away. I didn't even look at him.
You didn't push anyone away. And the babies.
Oh, God. I know. I did the right thing, but Dad, it hurts. It really hurts, Dad.
She is the lone character who breaks from the rest of the crew and enrolls at an HBCU in Atlanta. She becomes the anchor character for the spinoff All-American Homecoming. So the major theme here is that the boys in the original series, particularly Spencer, are fixers, rescuers, and protectors. As the series progresses, Spencer's worlds start to merge when his Crenshaw friends join him in Beverly Hills. Even so, the drama that the girls grapple with remains. There's little frivolity in their lives. Ashley, I know you've been following these series. What stands out to you about the portrayals of Black girlhood here?
Where do I even start? So in listening to your description of the main characters, the first thing that came to my mind is how Coop, the only dark-skinned girl on the show for the first few seasons, does not get to occupy a soft, dainty, prissy, or pretty Black girl identity like Layla and Olivia, who are both light-skinned. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm glad that the show portrays queer Black girlhood. So I'm glad that like Coop's character exists in that way. But it's a problematic representational choice to have the darkest female character also be masculine. And then it's not enough for her to just be masculine. She's also gang affiliated, right?
Right.
So
she's a thug.
Right. So she's a criminal. She's violent.
Right.
Which fits into all the, existing stereotypes about dark-skinned Black women. And so the addition of Simone does offer us a more traditionally feminine brown to dark-skinned girl, but she's pregnant. Now, all of the girls on this show are having sex, but the light-skinned girls don't get pregnant, right? So, like, that's just a really interesting choice. And I want to be clear that I'm not personally passing any kind of moral judgment on teen parents.
Right.
But I mentioned Simone's pregnancy here because we can all agree that the dominant cultural perceptions of Black teen moms are judgmental at best and dehumanizing at worst. So even though Simone has plenty of other qualities, the pregnancy defines her character on All-American. And the Homecoming spinoff, it does give her character a little more depth, but her identity as a teen mom still frames the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you're right. She is on All-American Homecoming in this world of Black respectability politics because she's in Atlanta. And, you can just, sense that this is like talented 10th, right? That sort of HBCU culture, the show is really drenched in that.
Yeah.
And because she is trying to make her way in this different social context, which is a far cry from, so the white posh Beverly Hills, the teenage pregnancy becomes something that she feels like she needs to hide. What's also really important to pay attention to here is the angst that she feels in making this decision to give the child up for adoption. So theoretically, once she makes that decision while still on the original series, All-American, the idea is that it gives her an opportunity to have a more carefree teenage years and girlhood and to make decisions not based on having to be a parent or caretaker of a young baby. Except she doesn't escape into this carefree life. You know, I wanted to see Simone partying and having lots of fun and, you know, making silly decisions and meeting new friends. But she sort of goes from one struggle to another. She is really missing her child, and there's a lot of pain that she feels from that. But there's also the added sort of emotional labor of having to conceal that reality. And so while she is gaining new friends, she is constantly mindful of the fact that they don't know all of who she is. So she can never escape this, what is presented as sort of this one crucial poor decision that she makes as a teenager. She is persistently punished for it, even though the baby is not present anymore in the series and is off being cared for by a beautiful Black family.
Right.
Is fully capable of caring for him. This, the weight of that and the shame of that is still sort of lurking behind Simone and doesn't allow her to be the sort of carefree college girl that we see in other cultural depictions of what college life is like.
I agree. And even in the moments in the series where she's trying to have fun or like trying to do something fun, it still becomes a moment of like angst and anxiety. I mean, this show is called Homecoming, right? And when we talk about, like homecoming at HBCUs, like it's lit. Like nobody's sitting around like sad and thinking about, you know, things that are making them anxious. It's a time to like let loose and be free.
Yeah, to your point, there is this heaviness that encapsulates the entire series because as it progresses in season 1, it is revealed that because of some fiscal mismanagement that the school cannot pay its bills and its debts, and that the school may very well close down. When you look at the way that the college experience is portrayed here at an HBCU, importantly, you get the sense that it's just an inherently dangerous terrain, and that if your experience isn't thwarted by one risk, then another one is going to get you.
Right.
When we juxtapose that with the experience that the boys are having from the other series, All American, which continues, they all sort of stay in Southern California and go to college and are playing on different football teams or involved in football teams and sort of as intern coaches. They have this fabulous beach house that they live in. It's not clear how they can afford it. And they're grappling with what we might consider to be more typical college problems. You know, they're trying to balance schoolwork with dating. So they're dealing with time management. Olivia and, the other girls, Layla and Coop, are not having the sunny California experience. It is always raining on them. Olivia finds herself in an internship at a local paper that I think is supposed to be something like an LA Times. And we more often than not see her in that workplace. There's this adultification that happens with the girls. So the only time we really see her on the college campus is when she is meeting up with Spencer so that they can have lunch. Otherwise, we see her at her internship, or we see her in the midst of chasing a story, so doing the work of a professional, or we see her in the midst of her sobriety journey at AA meetings or supporting someone else as a sponsor. So even the social settings where the characters are located remind us that we shouldn't be thinking of them as having this sort of playful spirit and energy, that they are people with serious responsibilities.
I agree. And I think that this show really creates a kind of interesting binary between like being hyper focused on like school and career and all of these more adult like tasks, and having a carefree adolescence that would include displays of pleasurable sexuality.
Right.
Because like when we think about the way that Black girls' sexuality is portrayed on All American and All American Homecoming, it's never pleasurable. There's always some kind of like consequence that comes with it, right? Like with Coop and her girlfriend, they're always navigating the negative comments that people have about them. They're always navigating the strained relationship between Coop and her mom. There's never like a pleasurable kind of sexual development. Olivia's case is the same way, where, you know, when she initially, like the first time that she and Spencer get involved, he's actually still dating Layla, who is her friend, and they already have this history between them where they were like best friends and then they weren't friends anymore. So it's like, oh, she can't even really enjoy that moment because now it means that she's betrayed her friend. The show really feeds into this idea that for Black girls, sex has to come with these dire consequences.
There is no bliss for the Black girls.
As problematic as network television portrayal of Black girlhood is, premium channels with way fewer restrictions on their content still feed into these notions of Black girls' sexuality as inherently deviant, insatiable, and or pathological. One show that stands out to me on this point is Showtime's The Chi. The brainchild of Lena Waithe, The Chi aims to show Chicago through the lens of its main characters, which includes 4 Black girls: Keisha, Tiffany, Maisha, and Gemma. So of these girls, I think Keisha starts out with the more central role to the show. And so the first time we see her in the pilot episode, she's walking to school with her little brother, Kevin, and he asks to use her phone. And she says no. And he says, let me see it or I'm going to tell mama you're ditching school.
Boy, you ain't gonna snitch. Who you got to text?
This girl.
Oh, you a player now, huh? Here.
Thank you.
Hold on, wait.
What the hell is you doing, bro? Nah, bro, what you doing? Not in public.
Look, I can't have my little brother looking all dirty, especially if you're trying to holler at some girls. Come here.
That's the first kind of introduction that we have to Keisha. She's all dressed up like she's going to school and walking her little brother to school when in fact, she's not going to school herself. And so, I mean, that's not a big deal by itself because kids go to school all the time. But the next time we see her in this same episode, she's naked on her knees performing fellatio on some ashy boy. we later come to know as her boyfriend, Emmett. So throughout the first season, Keisha seems to be completely mesmerized by Emmett and the sex that they have. They break things off when Tiffany, one of Emmett's 3 baby mamas, comes into the picture.
Really, nigga?
I'm not doing this with you today.
I really don't want to have my brothers come fuck you up. I don't. You need to start taking care of your responsibilities.
I do. Their names are Devontae and Cassius, and I can't afford them.
Well, you're gonna have to start Emmett Jr.'s your responsibility too.
Just because you name him after me, don't make him mine. Let me get these in a
She enters the show when she drops off EJ with Emmett, and she just leaves. So already that is playing into this idea of the unfit mother, right? Because like, who is she to just drop off this toddler and leave and go about her business, right? And so then after 2 weeks with no explanation, she comes back to get EJ, and she refuses to let Emmett see him again until he pays child support. In watching this show, it took me a while to realize that at this point that Tiffany is probably still a teenager herself. There's a comment that Emmett makes about how it's not fair for her to leave the baby with him for 2 weeks and then just come back and take him. And she says, well, I had him for 2 years before now. She was pointing out that in those 2 years, he wasn't involved in the child's life at all. So she was probably, maybe 15 or 16 when their baby was born.
Right.
But it's clear that Tiffany, at least in this first season, is supposed to be the stereotypical bitter baby mama. And eventually she and Emmett do rekindle their romance and get married, but the marriage doesn't work because Tiffany, after finding out that Emmett has been unfaithful, wants to pursue an open marriage. They go along with that for a little while, but eventually Emmett doesn't want her having sex with other men anymore. And so their marriage, it doesn't work out. So those are the more, I guess, the older girl characters. And then Maisha and Gemma are a few years younger than Keisha and Tiffany. Maisha is actually on the show from the first season. Her character is in middle school when the show starts. And she starts out as a bully. But we eventually come to understand that her aggressive behavior is a result of a complicated home life where she basically has to parent her younger siblings while her mother works these really long hours just to make ends meet. And sometimes she still doesn't make ends meet.
Well, hello to you too.
I want my bike back.
How you know I wasn't borrowing it?
You can't borrow my bike if I didn't lend it to you.
Then you stingy.
Stingy? Can I get my bike back or what?
Not gonna say please?
You stole my bike. You don't need a please.
Damn, I just wanted to ride it.
Well, get your own.
We can. Go on, take it.
For real?
Yeah, I was just borrowing it anyway. We needed to go to the store and get some milk because I ran out.
After the first season, Maisha becomes hyper-focused on school and her rap career. And she has a boyfriend, Papa, who is one of Kevin's friends. But they eventually break up because she wants to focus on herself. Gemma's character comes in during season 3, and that's after Kevin enrolls in a prep school. He and Jake are both going to this prep school.
Look, guys, there aren't too many of us here. So your actions are a reflection of mine, whether I like it or not. So please, get y'all shit together.
Who you talking to?
I'm talking to you, Ashy.
We will. We'll tighten up.
Please do.
You don't care about these white people?
Look, whether you like it or not, these white folks are still running shit. And the only way for us to fix it is to outrun these motherfuckers. We can't just be excellent. We gotta be phenomenal. And you're a king. Stop acting like a peasant.
She starts out as Kevin's girlfriend, but then she cheats on him with Jake, and she starts dating Jake, and in the current season ends up getting pregnant by Jake. So this is kind of a brief overview of 5 seasons of The Chi. Tamika, what are some of your thoughts about how The Chi deals with Black girl sexualities?
Still no bliss. I'll start with Gemma. I was originally excited about meeting this character because she is rich, she is dark skinned, and she is being raised by her successful, wealthy, single father. And this is not the way that we are used to seeing Black girls portrayed. When Jake and Kevin enroll in this prep school, they are really coming into Gemma's terrain. She is completely comfortable in this milieu of bourgeois society. She's incredibly confident, and she is not afraid to use her voice, and she's not afraid to go against the grain. She's not concerned with how these boys who come from what we may perceive as the hood, or from these predominantly Black working class parts of Chicago. She's not afraid to be herself around them because she's so comfortable in this social context where they are the newbies. But then we see her cheat on Kevin for no reason. Whenever something like this comes up, I always ask why. And in interviews I've seen with other serious actors, this is something that they ask of a script when they are preparing to portray a particular character. Why would this character make this particular step? Why would they make this particular decision?
Right.
And I think that what is so unsatisfying about this move that Gemma makes is that it seemingly comes without an explanation. Jake, of the 3 friends, Kevin, Jake, and Papa, Jake is sort of the most rough around the edges. Jake has definitely the most troubled home life by far. He is being raised in part by his older brother, who is involved in various criminal enterprises. But Jake doesn't have a lot of examples in his life of what sort of healthy masculinity looks like. And certainly not a lot of examples of what a healthy relationship looks like. His older brother is in a healthy relationship, but that's sort of short-lived. And it's not clear why Gemma would be smitten with him. She is originally positioned as this pretty sophisticated character. And that makes sense because she is growing up with a father who seems pretty comfortable raising a young woman and who allows her pretty loose parameters in terms of guiding and directing her own life. And most importantly, there is this safe space of unconditional love that we see from her father. He's very active. He is a part of her life. He is keeping track of her, but at the same time, he gives her some sort of safe independence. So when Gemma makes this decision to choose Jake over Kevin, it is a complete surprise to me. But this sole decision, who she chooses to sleep with, basically ruins her whole life. Her entire character is ripped to shreds, and a new, far less sophisticated, far less, seemingly less self-confident young woman takes her place. The new Gemma is not sure of herself. The new Gemma doesn't necessarily have a rationale for the decisions she makes. The new Gemma is a liar.
Right.
So it is Maisha who sort of takes on that role of the confident, self-assured, and more responsible person within the young friend group. It makes it appear that once Gemma becomes sexually active and once she links herself to the wrong boy or to the wrong sex partner, then she derails her entire destiny.
Then it becomes a situation where there has to be, again, a dire consequence for having sex. To be clear, though, she was having sex with Kevin.
Right.
But as you pointed out, Kevin and Jake's characters are supposed to be like the nice guy versus the thug, right?
Right.
So like by her basically like doing the nice guy wrong and choosing, the bad boy, then that is the consequence, then she suffers consequences now for her sexual choices. For those of you who have not watched all of the seasons, this is a spoiler, but Gemma ends up getting pregnant by Jake in season 5. And she goes through this long, like kind of not really long, but a period of deliberation where she's trying to figure out if she wants to have an abortion or if she wants to have the baby. And she and her father, as you pointed out, Tamika, have a very close relationship. And they had like a very, honest conversation about what either choice would mean, like for her life moving forward. But she ultimately decides to keep the baby because Jake wants to keep the baby. And he convinces her that he should have an equal say in the matter. Because at the first she was very much my body, my choice. And
exactly.
then, eventually she comes around to this idea that Jake should have a say as well. And so she decides to keep the baby. So they kind of get used to this idea that, she's going to be a teen mom and they're going to have to navigate, their new lives once the baby comes.
Mm-hmm.
But then she ends up losing the baby in a very violent way. In that moment, of course, she's hurt, but then she has a miscarriage because the baby can't be saved.
There are such heavy doses of what has come to be called trauma porn within the Chi, and that this brutal loss of a baby is sort of matched with an earlier incredibly traumatic experience earlier in a different season with Keisha. And there's a warning to listeners that that does involve sexual assault. But Keisha is abducted for several episodes, nearly an entire season, it seems. Her family does not know where she is. And she has been, abducted by a deranged individual who subjects her repeatedly to rape. While Keisha survives that experience, she's pregnant when she is ultimately reunited with her family. And just like Gemma, she goes through this agonizing pros and cons of what to do about her pregnancy. She decides to carry the baby to term, but decides she doesn't want to keep the baby while still healing from this very long, brutal experience. She is interviewing potential adoptive parents. In the end, while Keisha does choose someone to agree to let them adopt the baby, she then changes her mind and decides that she wants to raise the baby herself. The show offers her character a destiny that is pretty predictable. They do it in sort of an underhanded way, but she ends up teenage mom, you know, and ends up sort of shackled to her past and to her environment in a way that when young Black male characters make similar decisions, their characters don't experience the same kind of stasis. And I think this comes up especially with Emmett.
Yes.
Who becomes a thriving entrepreneur despite the fact that he has multiple babies. He essentially doesn't miss a beat.
Right.
There's a grace and a liberty attached to young Black masculinity that is inaccessible to Black girls.
Especially when it comes to sexuality and sexual exploration.
That's a privilege that they are not allotted because they are essentially not Black girls, but future women.
As we close, I want to highlight what's ultimately at stake in these mediated versions and visions of Black girlhood sexualities. As long as sexual agency and desire mark Black girls as deviant, they will remain vulnerable to sexual victimization. It is not Black girls' responsibility to rise to society's standards of respectability. Instead, it is our responsibility to protect all Black girls, regardless of how we feel about their choices, sexual or otherwise. It is especially our responsibility to protect all Black girls when their choice to engage in sexual activity has been taken away through lack of consent. It's important for Black girls to have models for healthy sexual development. While we know that media cannot, or at least should not, be the only source of Black girls' subjective formation, we cannot deny the role media representation plays in providing cultural scripts. Therefore, media makers have a responsibility to stop relying on tired tropes of Black girls' sexualities and tell some different, better stories.